Bounces out now to center. Ovechkin keeping into the zone. Kicks it back to McMichael. Top of the right circle. And moves in toward the slot. Chychrun trying to get the puck in toward Dylan Strome. He was camped out at the top of the goal crease. Deflected down, and now they score! It's Ovechkin on a pass that came from in behind the net. The Great Eight bangs it home. It's his 903rd career goal. It's 2-0 Washington.
John Walton last night on the call. Alex Ovechkin at home last night early in the second period. His 903rd career goal, his 442nd goal in that arena, currently named Capital One. Past names include the Verizon Center and MCI Center. I think he played in that arena with all three names. It got changed to Verizon Center in 2006. He was with the team 2005, 2006. So I'm assuming he played in that arena with all three names. The 442 goals in the same venue is now an NHL record. His 442nd last night in that arena passed Gordie Howe for that honor. So he keeps piling them up. The Caps won the game. You heard the call that made it 2-0 early second period. They won the game over the Kings 2-1 to snap a 2-game losing skid. Good morning, everybody. The bye week is upon us, and our football team gets a break. I guess we get a break too, but not really. You know, I don't think anybody gets a break because we are dealing with a season that has truly crashed and burned over the last month and a half. And unlike past seasons that crashed and burned, we didn't expect this one. You know, there was super high expectation. There were super high expectations entering the season, and that's why it stings even more than it did the many times it happened to us previously. We came to expect it, so any kind of pleasant, late into the season contention was always received very well, even if it wasn't legitimate, whereas this season, it felt like they should be in contention from the jump. This from Randy. Randy writes, Kevin, you asked last week if this season was a blip or last year a fluke. You can't lose to Miami and call the season a blip. Sorry, this season is completely lost because of injuries, yes, but I'm pretty sure it would have been a long season anyway. Okay, Randy, I'm not so sure about that. We'll agree to disagree on that. This from Mark. Kevin, at least the loss to Miami was an AFC loss. Yes, good one, Mark. It won't hurt them in the NFC tie-breaking scenarios. No, we won't be hurt by that. If we're going to lose games, lose them to AFC teams. By the way, the next one against Denver would be an AFC loss as well. So they're in good shape there on the tiebreakers. And then this from Don J. Don J writes, Kevin, you said that we're used to seasons like this one. They haven't been in tank time this early in years. It's been since Jay's firing season and Callahan took over. Rivera never lost it like this one. And yes, I think Jaden should sit and the team should tank. Also, did you see what the Miami linebacker said about Mariota? He's right. Our guy can't throw the ball. I don't know what you're watching. We need a new backup quarterback. I did see what the Miami Jack Jones, the guy that picked off the pass in overtime, said. Did you see what he said, Max?
I did not.
After the game?
This did not make it across my desk. What did he say?
He basically on the sideline said that, if we go on defense first and we get a stop on a run and he throws it, I'm going to pick it off. He can't throw the football. I mean, that is,
awesome.
That's an exaggeration. Marcus Mariota can throw the football. It's not his number one asset. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, that was a little bit of sort of piling on. That's for sure. Real quickly too, this is not at all the first time that it's happened. Do you remember 2023? Do you remember the Sam Howell season? Come on, man. They lost their last 8 games. They were 4-5. Okay, they were 4-5. And they had that game in Seattle where he actually played pretty well and they had a chance to win that game. They were 4-6, but then it got sideways in a hurry and they were losing to bad teams too, like, the Giants and the Jets. And I mean, Jacoby Brissett came in and got them competitive at the end of that year, but they went 4-13. Maybe this one is headed for 4-13 as well. But I would say, Don J, that 2023 got pretty sideways before Thanksgiving. Before Thanksgiving, they were 4-10. They were 4-8. Okay, 4-8. So they're 3-8 right now. That we knew that season didn't have much of a shot once we got to the middle of November. Pretty bad team that year, and a pretty hopeless QB situation when we got to the end. Where is Sam Howell, by the way? I'm curious. Is he in Philadelphia?
He that last I checked, he was, and that was earlier this season. I've heard no movement on the Sam Howell front, so I assume that is still the case.
And he is the backup to the guy that people like, right? Blanking on his name.
Oh,
the guy, the Stanford
McKee,
quarterback,
the backup to Tanner McKee.
Tanner McKee.
Yes.
Yeah, Tanner McKee's the backup, correct?
I believe that is the case.
Yeah, he is. I'm looking at it right now. He's the backup. And yes, Sam Howell is the third string quarterback in Philadelphia. I want to come back to this idea of tanking. And by the way, the part of the tanking would be to not play Jaden the rest of the year. I'll come back to that in a few minutes, but I do want to get to a what do you got? This happened 40 years ago tonight.
Move behind Peyton, Jim Brown, and Franco Harris. 1st and 10. Riggins, Fleetlicker, back to Theismann's in a lot of trouble. And it was Lawrence Taylor who slammed Theismann to the ground at the 42-yard line. The blitz was on. That's not necessarily a good play to have called. And quickly, Lawrence Taylor is up saying Theismann is hurt. And I don't believe Lawrence Taylor would have reacted that way unless Theismann is really hurt. He slammed him to the natural surface here. Let's take a look at with our reverse angle camera. He's looking deep, but he knows he's in trouble. Lawrence Taylor, number 56, right there. Carson is number 53. But it's Taylor over Carson. Slamming. And you see the right knee, the right foot, the ankle. And I knew that something was really bad. But Lawrence, stomach is weak. You just don't watch. Number 56 is Lawrence Taylor. He makes the sack, and Theismann's right leg, unfortunately, was caught under Lawrence Taylor. And I'm sure that the word will be coming up very shortly that Theismann's season is over.
Yeah, and it was 40 years ago tonight, 40 years ago tonight, November 18th, 1985, RFK Stadium, Monday Night Football. That sight of Lawrence Taylor turning to the sideline with his hands over his head and then waving everybody out quickly. He heard the snap. He saw it. And that was it for Joe Theismann. Joe Theismann's career was over with the multi-break of his leg. That was the second play of the second quarter. And it was a game in which Washington actually would win. They would win the game 23-21. Jay Schrader came in, and on his second snap, he threw a 44-yard pass to Art Monk. It was a beautiful throw, and they ended up winning the game 23-21. A couple of things about that game that perhaps, you guys don't remember. Joe Jacoby was not the starting left tackle that night. Russ Grimm had moved out to left tackle in that particular spot because Jacoby was injured. Rick Donnelly was the center, and Jeff Bostic was the starting left guard. And Taylor, came from that particular side. So no, Jake that night. The other right side, if you're wondering about the Hogs that particular night, was not the best representation of the Hogs, with Bostic not at center and Jacoby not in the lineup. Ken Huff was the right guard and Mark May was the right tackle. So it was a bit of a makeshift crew. They had a lot of injuries that year. That was a season in which they struggled with injuries. And then, of course, they lost their quarterback. Jay Schrader came in. And Schrader ended up having a pretty decent first season. He was a third-round pick out of UCLA, excuse me. A baseball player, could have played Major League Baseball as easily as he could play NFL quarterback. That was his rookie season in the NFL. He ended up starting, when Theismann broke his leg, he ended up starting 5 games, went 4-1, and Washington rallied to a 10-6 record that particular year. They had struggled a little bit during the course of that season to score a little bit. Schrader had the bigger arm. He was the better athlete at that point. He was not the better quarterback, though. And it was only, about a year and a half later where we all fell in love with one Doug Williams. And that was it. But he got his first start the following week. They beat Pittsburgh on the road. And then they went on a run at the end of the year to finish 10-6. That was one of those 10-6 seasons. 85 and 89 were 10-6 seasons in which, believe it or not, Washington missed the postseason. But man, Joe Theismann was really, that was painful to watch. But Theismann truly is, in the history of this franchise, I think he, without question, goes down as number 2. If we do it in modern era football, Sammy Baugh understood that Sammy Baugh is going to be a part of that conversation. But Joe Theismann and Sonny Jurgensen, in modern era football, I think Sonny probably would be considered the franchise's best all-time quarterback, but Joe is number 2. Joe still holds the record, the franchise record for passing yards. Sonny holds the record for passing. If you take Sammy Baugh out of the equation, he holds the record for passing touchdowns. But Theismann was the quarterback that led our team to its first Super Bowl, back-to-back NFC championship wins, an incredible leader, and really for the day, an excellent quarterback, an MVP in 1983. That was Joe's best season, and that season just in general was a season in which the team was unstoppable offensively in 83. But 83 as an MVP, just to compare it to today's NFL, this would not be an MVP season in 2025. It was in 83. 29 touchdowns, 11 picks, 3,714 yards, which was the most Joe threw for in his career. 60.1 completion percentage, which was not the highest of his career. 82, the year they won the Super Bowl, was his highest completion percentage. But Joe, during that, stretch of Joe Gibbs as a starting quarterback, all right, if you go from 81, Joe's first year, to when Joe got hurt in that game 40 years ago tonight, Joe was 47-21 as a starter, 47-21 as a starter for Joe Gibbs. And then, of course, in the postseason, Joe was 6-2 in the postseason as a starter. 4-0 in that first season in 82, 2-1 in 83. They won the divisional round game, won the NFC Championship, lost to the Raiders in the Super Bowl. And then in 84, they lost at home in the divisional round to the Bears a year before those Bears became the 85 Bears. But, you could make the case because of the winning and the MVP that Joe is the number 1 quarterback and the best quarterback in franchise history. I think in terms of how he would be evaluated by the NFL, Sonny's in the Hall of Fame. Joe's not in the Hall of Fame. Joe did not have a Hall of Fame career, although it wasn't far from a Hall of Fame career. But the numbers just don't put him into that conversation. Joe's overall winning percentage or overall record as a starting quarterback, 77-47 during his career. He got his first starts in 1976. Sonny was off the team. Then Billy Kilmer was the starter. And then went back and forth with Kilmer in 77 and 78 as well. 78, he was the primary starter. And then when Kilmer retired and in 79, it became truly his team. He was an outstanding quarterback. He was an outstanding quarterback in that 1979 season when they went 10-6. 1980 was the no John Riggins season. And then Riggins came back after he was bored and broke. And they started the Gibbs era together in 81. And he was just an outstanding quarterback. 2 Pro Bowls for Joe, the MVP in 83. In 82, by the way, the year they won the Super Bowl, Mark Mosley won the MVP, as most of you know, the only kicker ever to win MVP. Theismann finished 4th in the MVP voting. Dan Fouts was 2nd. Marcus Allen was 3rd. 40 years ago tonight, I was in the stadium that night. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget the hush. I'll never forget there was a gentleman a couple of rows in front of us that had a, portable black and white TV, and everybody was crowded around it to see the replay, and it was bad. Joe got carted off the field that night and would never play again. The injury was that severe that he would never play again. That was, by the way, for Joe, that was his age 36 season. He had turned 36 early in that season, but a really good career for Joe Theismann. Started in the NFL for George Allen as a 3rd-string quarterback and a punt returner. Yeah, Joe was that athletic. Joe was really one of the most athletic quarterbacks of the day. And by the way, just a phenomenal all-around athlete, as we've talked about many times. He could have played college basketball, college baseball, but instead became a legend at Notre Dame. All right, that's my what do you got? I want to come back to this this note from Don J. And I want to ask you guys here as we sit here, in the bye week at 3-8, and this season being a truly lost season. Like mathematically, they're not eliminated, but 9-8's not going to make. If they were to miraculously win 6 games in a row, the chances of 9-8 making it are so long shot at this point. The NFC right now has we've been talking about this all year long, although it looked like maybe some of these teams would come back to the pack. But right now, the 8th seed is Detroit at 6-4. Do you really see them or the Niners as a 7 seed at 7-4? Going 9-8, and then Washington probably wouldn't even win a tiebreaker. So we don't have to have any of those conversations. The season may not be mathematically over, but they're not going anywhere. And the issue is, what do you want them to make out of it? They've got a lot of holes. This is not a roster that's been devastated and like it'll come back fully healthy and they're going to be great. I mean, they'll be better having Jaden Daniels next year if he's healthy enough to play 17 games. That's the most important thing right now, more than anything else, is to have him playing 17 football games. Certainly 15 or 16 of them, not half of them, which is probably what it's going to turn out to be when all is said and done, or a little bit more than half of them, maybe. But what would you like to see them do? Would you like to see them? It's hard to tank. Let's just talk about that for a moment, because we've had these conversations before. It is hard to tank because you only have 53 and you only dress 46. What you do, though, is you end up playing players that are young, inexperienced. To get them the experience, you're game planning to give them a chance to succeed on the field. These players are playing for their livelihoods. That there's no player that's going to openly tank. They're playing for their jobs. They're playing for their livelihoods, especially at the end of seasons when they're trying to put their best on tape. But you tank by saying Jaden's going to take a seat. We're going to play our backup quarterback. We're going to go super young. Krosky, Merritt, and Rodriguez. I mean, they're starters. I mean, a lot of these players are playing anyway, right? So it doesn't really matter out of necessity. But we're going to get a really good look at, guys like Ben Sinnott, if he's healthy enough to play, because he's, out right now. We'd really like to get a look at maybe some of those practice squad receivers, Ja'Cory Brooks, Jacoby Jones. We got one from Jacoby Jones. If Treylon Burks comes back, we'd like to see more of him on defense. Sorry, Bobby, we love you, but Jordan McGee's now our starting middle linebacker. We got to see a lot more of Johnny Newton. We got to see Kane Madrano. We got to see, I don't even know who I'm thinking of now. I'm looking at right now their roster, and it's just littered with red marks. O out, Q questionable, or IR. I mean, if you pull up the depth charts at Our Lads or on ESPN, Washington's is just littered with red marks all over, and it doesn't even list a lot of the players that are nicked and out. They cut Matt Gay yesterday. I'm assuming most of you saw that. They cut Matt Gay, and they signed Jake Moody. Jake Moody, was the kicker in San Francisco that Deebo Samuel went after on the sideline. That's Jake Moody. Okay. He's also the kicker that kicked the game winner on Monday Night Football for the Chicago Bears this year to beat Washington before Cairo Santos came back. Santos was out and they got in range. That was a wonderful end of the game when DeAndre Swift ran through air for about 30 yards into chip shot field goal range, and Jake Moody came on and booted a 38-yarder at the gun. But this is the kicker that Deebo got into it on the sideline in San Francisco with. So they are reunited. Jake Moody, who in the NFL as a field goal kicker, 54 of 71, 76.1%. Is that good? I don't think so. Not great, that's for sure. His over 50 mark, 6 of 12 career. So they had just had enough of Matt Gay. The frustration. What a fine line it is with kickers too, man, right? Like if that first one, if Mariota doesn't take the sack, that first one probably is good from 45 or 44 yards out instead of 51 because it was a 6 or 7 yard loss on the sack. And then what if, Miami scores the touchdown on 4th and goal and Washington has to get down there and score a touchdown rather than, just trying to get a field goal? Like he'd probably still be in a Washington uniform, but he wasn't very good. He wasn't very good from 50 and out. That's where 5 of his 6 misses this year came from. We knew that going in. So now we got another kicker who's been schizophrenic for the most part through his young career at 25 years old. But you never know. These kickers, I remember when I was raving about Dustin Hopkins because the ball got up so quickly. All right. Here's what I want to know. I want to know whether or not you're ready for the tank. There's probably a better way to put it because you really can't tank for real in the NFL. But are you ready for we're getting a look at everybody they have on the practice squad? They're going to bring guys in. We're just trying to get a look at as many guys as possible. And hopefully it will lead to losses and a top 5 pick. 301-230-0980. Kevin Sheehan Show. Team 980. Team 980. TheTeam980.com. Don't forget you can watch the show on the Team 980's YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button and hit the like button when you get there. So, do you want the team to tank? That's the easiest way to describe it. NFL teams really, it's hard to tank when you only have 46 dressed, 45, 46 dressed on Sunday. Everybody's got to play. It's not like, you got 50 redshirt, freshmen and sitting there waiting to play. You got a lot of guys on your practice squad. The practice squad's, advanced. It's larger than it's ever been before. That's true. But the real question is, would you like to see them end up, in that area of having the best possible draft pick? Right now, they are 7th. They'd hold the 7th pick in the draft if the season ended today. Now, not everybody's played the same number of games, so we'll see how it shakes out. I'll also remind everybody, because we talked about this when Dan Quinn got hired. Dan Quinn's teams historically have gotten better as the season's gone on. It was the same with Ron Rivera. Remember Rivera's record late in the season? Their teams never bailed. They actually, improved and won more games at the end of the year than they did at the beginning of the year. Quinn, in his final 4 games of every season he coached in Atlanta, 16-4. Okay. And then last year, obviously, coming down the stretch, pretty impressive as well, winning their final 4 games. So if you take, Washington also into the conversation, he is 20-4 in the last 4 games of the season as a head coach in the NFL. So he's not bailing. And by the way, I'd be very surprised if the team bails on him. This is just not his. He's not a slap, what. He is very much a competitive. It hurts. He's a communicator. The team likes him. Everybody's always liked Dan. They believe in him. This team's not throwing in the towel. It's not going to happen. I can almost guarantee it. Sure, there's a scenario in which you get to the final 2 games of the year and they sit, anybody that's meaningful, and they take a look at a lot of the young guys. And look, they don't have a choice right now but to take a look at a lot of guys that they didn't intend on taking a long look at. They've already been doing it with guys in the lineup that they never anticipated would be in the lineup. We got Jacoby Jones. Nobody expected that. Nobody expected Chosen, Burks, Chris Moore. Who am I forgetting? I mean, the list of guys that have been out there. I mean, Zach Ertz pretty much has to play. Bates has been banged up and hasn't been playing well, and now Sinnett's hurt. I mean, are you going to just start Colson Yankoff and let's see more Colson Yankoff. What do you got at running back? You've played them all. I mean, you don't even have one. You got the guy from Michigan, right? Remember they signed the guy from Michigan before the season started? Number 7 from Michigan. Max?
Travion Edwards.
Huh?
Travion Edwards?
Donovan Edwards.
Donovan Edwards, yes.
Donovan Edwards. They signed him. Maybe bring him up. Let's see him. I mean, you don't want to see Sam Hartman. Quarterback, we're not going to, you want to bring up River Craycraft? He's a veteran receiver. See what he's got? I mean, they don't have a lot of options. They're going with a new kicker. They knew after Sunday Matt Gay's not a part of the future, so let's try somebody else out. We got another 6 games. We can try somebody else out. See if he can end up being our kicker next year. 301-230-0980. The question really is about tanking to get the best possible draft choice. Is that what you would like them to do? Play all the players that they think have any chance of making the team and being a contributor next year? Again, I would point out they're playing a lot of those guys anyway, even if they don't think that they're long-term contributors out of necessity. It's either that or they wouldn't be able to field a team. Where are you on these final 6 games? Number 1, they won't do it. Number 2, until we get to like the last 2 games maybe. And by the way, those last 3 games, Philly, Dallas, Philly, division rival games, this is not going to be the Kevin that wanted them to lose to the Giants in 2019, or 2023 lose out. Those are regime changes. Who cares? There's no carryover. There's very little carryover to begin with. Trying to get into the best position to get a quarterback. Got the quarterback. Got that figured out. They're not going to tank. I don't want them to tank. I want to see Jaden and Terry and Noah Brown. I want to see the offensive line continue to gel and to play together. I want to see a much different team and they have a chance to be healthier on offense for the finish if Jaden gets back, with Terry and maybe Noah Brown. So I'd like to see what that looks like since we didn't get a chance really to see that at all this year. 6 games, some good opponents, and some opponents that, quite frankly, they can beat. Minnesota, the Giants. They've got some of those on the schedule. I want to see that. I don't care where the draft choice ends. They're not. Yes, there's always the possibility if you end up with a top 3 pick, you can get a ransom for that. If there's a quarterback there that somebody wants. I get that. And it's a good position to be in when you don't need a quarterback. It's a great position to be in when you don't need a quarterback. However, I would caution about the upcoming draft. It's not right now, and the season's been a roller coaster in terms of the quarterbacks. The quarterbacks that were, projected early picks before the season began, right now, guys like Nussmeier and Klubnik, they're basically day 3 picks, and guys that you'd never heard of, Fernando Mendoza, are at the top of the list. We still have, 3 weeks left, 2 weeks left in the regular season and a whole playoff. This is not 2024's draft. So the kind of ransom you might think you can get, think again. All right, Max, what's your answer?
So I'm on the other side. I'm in favor of the tank. Now, obviously, intentionally trying to lose is out of the window, or out of the.
Teams don't intentionally try to lose.
Unless you're the Miami Dolphins.
You can't even do that, really.
Unless you're the Miami Dolphins and you instruct Brian Flores to.
But they couldn't even pull that off, right? Because
exactly.
they ended up playing Ryan Fitzpatrick and he ended up winning games.
For sure.
But
I
think that's what happened.
Yeah. I mean, the higher the pick, the better the ransom you're going to get if you do decide to trade down. Remember, this team only has 2-3 picks in the top 150. So I want to see them either draft a good player high, whether that's Arvell Reese, Reuben Bain, or Caleb Downs. I'm a big proponent of any of those 3. But if you do decide, hey, one of these teams has fallen in love with, say, like Ty Simpson, because while the quarterback class has not wowed this year in college, I definitely think that there's something to the fact that the second these guys put shorts on and do a pro day and have those like Zach Wilson type throws, NFL GMs start to convince themselves into something, whether that's the Jets or the Saints, that I think you could easily, if you do end up behind them or ahead of them in the drafts by some miracle, you could definitely talk them into moving up a slot or 2 to get one of their guys like Ty Simpson or Dante Moore. So I'm in favor of it. I could definitely see us getting a king's ransom from one of these teams that would end up falling in love with a quarterback. But I mean, it's just play the young guys, see how it goes. I want to see Jordan McGee. Kane Medrano has been a healthy scratch for how many games now? Just throw him out.
Well, he played
there.
Sunday because he made a special teams tackle, right?
Thank God. But okay. Yeah, let's get some of these guys out there and let them go. Just let them play, let them get experience. That's where I'm at.
I promise you guys that, yes, there will be a mix as we get later in the season, and we are approaching the later in the season, even though it feels like the season's over. There are still 6 NFL Sundays left in this season. I mean, we've got another month and a half of football games. And so, I mean, Quinn yesterday, see if you can find this. He referred to post-bye as the second half of the season.
Oh, boy.
On multiple occasions. It's not the second half of the season for Washington because their bye week came so late. They've played 11 games. That's not, half the season. 6 games is not half the season left. But the fact that he answered it that way tells me that he still believes there's a chance they could turn this around and play some good football down the stretch. And quite honestly, that's what I want them to try to do. I want them to try to play their best and win as many games as they can. Now, if you tell me that it's going to happen with Josh Johnson and, Viggers and Donovan Edwards back there, they're not going to win games. I want to see the starting offense out there. I want to see the starting offense out there for the first time since week 1. I really do. And see what that looks like down the stretch against some pretty, Philadelphia twice, Dallas playing well, Denver, look out. I don't think Jaden's going to be there for that game anyway. All right, your calls. Scott, kick it off for us. Would you like to see them, lose as many games as possible to get the highest possible draft pick?
Hey, Kevin, thanks for taking my call. Always enjoy your show. So Max sort of stole my thunder a little bit.
Sorry.
I'm sort of with him. Part of, as a fan, you always want them to win, but looking at the long term, I don't think that we have anything to play for but player development and continuing to build the culture that Dan has built really well. I think it's time to find out from your depth who can play, who can contribute, things along those lines. And you don't do that unless you give them a chance to play. And to Max's point, Belichick and the Patriots were kings of trading down, getting more draft picks, things along those lines. And if they get a high draft pick, even if they get a superstar player that they draft for themselves, or they trade back to a team that says, I got to have that player, I'll give you my first and a second or a third. If you look at team building, obviously Peters has to have the opportunity to draft players to fill out this roster. I love Bobby Wagner. I love what he brings to the team, but he shouldn't be on the field anymore because he's not part of the future. I think you need to give all the young kids a chance to play, to learn, and to grow. And I apologize for rambling, but
no, it's fine. I think that example is the most obvious example, and it's doable for them because Jordan McGee has flashed a little bit here and there, and Bobby Wagner, to your point, more likely than not, is not going to be on the roster. But by playing Jordan McGee, they wouldn't be throwing in the towel on a game. It would be that mixture of seeing these young players play. I don't think we start to see that, honestly, until the final 2 or 3 games of the year. One thing's been clear about Bobby Wagner from their perspective. They're a bad defensive team, really bad. They think they'd be a lot worse without Bobby Wagner out there because he still plays basically every snap of every game.
Yeah, but I guess my question is, should he be at this point? You love the career that he's had and the influence and obviously the mentoring and the team leadership and all those kinds of things. That doesn't mean that he should be part of the long range plan. I think this is now the time to really. Even the guys on the practice squad, those receivers they've signed. Poor Jaden, he doesn't. When Terry's not on the field, he has no one to throw to because nobody can get open unless they're playing zone, and then everything's underneath. So you got to see if any of these guys can contribute against ones and twos, and see if you've got any. You don't find that beautiful piece of fruit unless you take a bite out of it, right? So if you don't have that opportunity, you're not going to grow or continue to develop your talent base.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. I think one of the things that you take into consideration when you are in charge of this stuff, which we're not, and they know this, they know the answers to this, is sometimes you put players out there that don't give you a chance to evaluate the other players. I think back to the RG3 era, and the idea that in that season, in Jay Gruden's first season in 2014, and he finally decided we can't do this until there were more injuries. But RG3 wasn't giving the offensive staff a chance to evaluate the other players because he was just so horrible in terms of a drop back passer. He just had no clue. He had to play, the way the Shanahans had designed a system for, and that's not what they were doing in 2013. The same can be said for like a middle linebacker. They might tell you, yeah, we can play Jordan McGee all of his snaps, but because he's not ready yet, it's not going to help us evaluate everybody else. And I think that's a part of the equation that you get. That's why with Jaden out there, I want a chance to evaluate everybody else too. Gives you the best chance to evaluate everybody else. Let's go to my guy Eric in Norfolk. Eric, go ahead.
Hey, what's up, Kevin? So first off, I just years like this where in November the season just feels pretty much just done. It's just these years suck. So before I get to the tanking part, I want to kind of give you a little bit of an analogy that I was thinking about earlier, where the analogy is essentially NASCAR. And our driver, our quarterbacks, and the car, our stock cars, the supporting cast that's around it, right? And so we're out there and our tires, we get 4 blown tires, and they go to the shed to try to find some new tires, and all they can find are like some kids' wagon wheels, which is essentially our backup players that we have. We have zero depth. We have no one who can properly replace the starters that we had. And so we're out there on the track and everyone's lapping us, and we just have this busted up car that gets into a wreck that injures our driver's arm. And it's just, if that's the way that the rest of the season is going to go, I don't want to see any more of it. Now, to your point, if Terry comes back, if Noah comes back, if we get the proper parts to this car that can be something watchable and something that we can get behind, absolutely, I'm going to be, looking forward to Sunday. But at this point in time, I'm not sitting on the edge of my couch, hoping that they win. It's just, it's another year of just feeling a little bit dejected and checked out in November.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for that. I think one of the things you got to make clear here is that they're not even playing with their depth. I'm not saying that I believed in their depth. We talked about it all off season. This was a roster that had frontline starter issues in spots, especially on defense. And we weren't, the depth was an issue as well, but they're not even really playing with their depth anymore. I mean, like at receiver, Chris Moore was cut and brought back to the practice squad or signed to the practice squad. Robbie Chosen, Treylon Burks, Jacoby Jones. These aren't depth receivers. Luke McCaffrey is a depth receiver. Jalen Lane is a depth receiver. They're not playing with these guys anymore. They're playing with guys that were not on the roster, that were either cut or picked up off the street. So we're not getting a sense of their depth. Their depth got banged up too. Now the offensive line stayed pretty healthy. But yeah, look, I think if we get into that spot where it's really about just playing the young guys, for me, let me list out the guys I really want to see. I actually really want to see the kid Ja'Cory Brooks, who I don't even know if he's on the roster anymore. Number 16 in the preseason. That was Brooks, right? The taller receiver.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to see him. So they gave him some money. Has he been active for a game?
I think he's been active for like 1 or 2.
Okay.
Eventually,
I wouldn't mind seeing Jones. Obviously, they feel more comfortable with Jones.
Yeah.
I'd love it if Treylon Burks comes back. This is a former first-round pick. I'd like to see him. I would definitely, like to see Sinnott a lot, but he's hurt right now. But maybe he gets healthy. I'd like to see what they have at tight end in Sinnott. I would really like to see Johnny Newton get even more snaps. I'd really like to see Jordan McGee get a lot of snaps. I'd like to see Kane Medrano, but maybe they don't think he's, ready for prime time. I don't know what you can do in the secondary. It's like the players that maybe you wanted to see. What are we doing here? Like Trey Amos, we've seen it. He's done. What we are seeing now is we're seeing more Darnell Savage instead of Quan Martin. Darnell Savage, though, is a veteran. You know, he got picked all the way back in, which draft was he? The 19 draft? 18 draft? Can't even remember now. 19 draft Savage? That was the Montez Sweat draft? Dwayne Haskins draft? That would be 19. I think it's 19.
Yeah, 2019.
You know, certainly don't want to see any Preston Smith, you know, or any of the veterans, the older guys. I think you got to just leave Sanders still out there. He's just got to keep getting more reps. Tyler Owens, he's played a little bit here and there. Antonio Hamilton, I mean, these guys weren't, you know, did Tyler Owens even make the final roster, or was he on the practice squad? I can't even remember. He may have made the final roster. I think he did. Look, if Will Harris comes back and is healthy enough to play, do you want to see him? I mean, it's a vet, but in this system, want to keep seeing Jacob Martin, that's for sure. But, you know, there are guys that you can't see anymore. I mean, Jalen Lane, we're not going to see as much. We're not going to see Trey Amos as much. You know, Rodriguez just is much or as intriguing as Bill is. Maybe we don't have to play McNichols since we know what we have with him. I don't know. I'm for trying to, you know, get the starting offense or something resembling the starting offense back out onto the field. I'd like to see what that looks like. All right, if you're on hold, stay there. All right, question simply put, you know, do you want to see them lose, you know, out and get a very high draft choice, a.k.a. tank? Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com. From Zach, when you guys do your power rankings this week, can you do your bottom four? I'm curious as to whether or not Washington would be in it. Close,
yeah.
Cleveland, the Raiders, the Jets, the Titans. That would be the bottom four, right? Did I just nail the bottom four? Giants.
Yeah, you did.
Saints.
We're doing our bottom four and then the outside looking in.
Yeah. Max said to me during the break, do you really think they, even if they tried to win, that they're going to win enough games? Like, aren't they basically going to end up 4-13, 5-12 anyway, even if they try? Yeah, with that defense, more likely than not. But remember, last year the defense wasn't very good either. And they were able to, pull off wins over the Eagles and the Falcons and, in games in which, they had no, in normal circumstances, you probably lose. But yeah, like even if they bring back the starting offense, like if Noah Brown, Terry McLaurin, and Jaden Daniels can all go with a starting and healthy offensive line, and Zach Ertz and Bates and Sinnott healthy, and all three backs healthy, and that can start in December with the Minnesota game. I mean, how many of those games are they really going to win? Well, Minnesota's quarterback situation and offense is a bit of a mess. Then they get the Giants, so they could definitely win those two games, although they're road games. And then they go Eagles, Cowboys, Eagles. The Eagles offensively, that's, by the way, the most intriguing game of the weekend coming up. Philly at Dallas. Philly can't score and Dallas can score. And Dallas may have improved themselves defensively with Quinnen Williams. He had a sack and a half last night in his first game. What's the line on that? Philly's got to be favored, right? Even though it's in Dallas. I haven't looked at any point spreads this week.
3.5.
Philly's 3.5?
Yes.
Yep, there it is, 3.5. All right, question. Is it your preference that they lose out, get the best draft choice, and in the process of doing that, just play all of the players that are younger and they think have any chance of being a contributor in the future? I would, again, remind you, they've played a lot of those players out of necessity, and then they've had to go to a lot of other players out of necessity that were, there to replace those that were depth players anyway. So it's not like they're not playing a lot of guys that they didn't expect to play. Jason and Laurel. Jason, go ahead.
Hey, Kev. Thanks to you and Max for taking my call.
Sure.
I got to be honest. I'm okay if they don't win another game. Because I think what the team needs to do is kind of understand. If they won 5 of the next 6, that doesn't think to us when we get a least draft pick. So I'd like to get this best draft pick possible. And I know we don't have a lot of draft picks this year, and if we can get a really good one, maybe will that into more. But as far as the play on the field, I don't want to see the same old. There is some things I'd like to see different. Like I'd like to see him play.
Man, we've had some rough luck with phones the last few days.
Yeah, but I think that offensive set has been our best set over the last 5 weeks.
What set was that? You faded out.
Oh, I'm sorry. The bigger personnel jumbo package, multiple tight ends.
Oh, okay. Yep.
For linemen.
See him try to really run the football.
I'd like to see more of that. Yeah. I'd like to see the defense be tougher, do things out of character.
We got to move on. We got to move on from Jason. His phone's bad. But I don't want to see anything other. Look, I'm restraining myself from screaming loser talk from to everybody that would like to see them lose out, because it's now just a part of the conversation with fans, and draft choices are important, and having more of them gives them a better chance to add more players. The draft is, for the most part, a crapshoot. I think we all understand that as NFL fans. Hitting on somewhere around 36, 37% of them is a good draft. And if you hit on 37% of them, it's better, if you're going to hit at 3 out of 10, it's better to have 10 than 5 and only end up with 1.5 contributors, right? So the more, the merrier. And right now they only have 5 picks, right? I think they only have 5 picks. 6 picks. They have 6 picks. 7's the normal allotment. They don't have a second and they don't have a 4th right now. Okay, but they have 2/6. They got the second one back in the Brian Robinson trade to the 49ers. He's played pretty well, by the way, in backup to Christian McCaffrey. If you're wondering, a lot of our former players have really played well in other spots.
Emmanuel Forbes,
Cam
sick,
Curl,
Kevin.
Emmanuel Forbes, Brian Robinson Jr. Yeah,
Saw Jamin Davis on the field last night. That
Jamin Davis
great.
was on the field last night. Jeremy Chin was on the field last night.
That he was.
Yeah. Stay on hold. I see everybody there. We'll keep taking calls on this next.
As the team enters the bye week, players, coaches, I mean, everybody needs a reset, right? You need a reset probably. So how do you take these next couple of days? How do you approach this? What do you need to do for yourself to kind of re-energize for this second half?
Yeah. First thing, I got to look at the big picture and make sure the messaging of how we, set the tone for what the next half will bring. That's really important, Scott. What do we want to emphasize? What things need to be changed from what can we emphasize more at practice? Okay. We want more of the red zone or more of third down, and navigating that is important. The second half of the season, you got a chance to get better, man. And so that's what I want to see. There's a lot of players here on this team that I want to see do this, and we'll work really hard to do that.
Yeah. To be fair to the coach, Scott Abraham from Channel 7 put it in his mind by saying for the next half of the season. Yeah, the next half of the season started with the Seattle game, actually the second half of the Seattle game, which was better than the first half of the Seattle game when they were down 31-7 at halftime. But yeah, no, the second half is well underway, and when they come back on Thanksgiving weekend's Sunday Night Football, which did not get flexed by the NFL, they will be into their final 6 games of a 17-game schedule, having played 11 already. So it's really closer to the final third of the season, although it's not exactly the final third. If they played 18 games, it would be the final third, but it isn't. All right, 301-230-0980. By the way, on the decision the NFL made not to flex, they considered it, but the issues were kind of what we talked about yesterday, and that is that the games that they could have moved were protected. The Houston at Indianapolis game was an auto-protected game for CBS, so that they couldn't move that one. And then the other game, Buffalo and Pittsburgh, was also a CBS doubleheader protected game. And then some suggested, well, why not, Rams at Carolina? The reason for that is that the Rams are on Sunday Night Football this week. And then again, they are on Sunday Night Football this week. And so they weren't going to go back-to-back Sunday nighters with the Rams at Carolina. So there you go. Look, you get Denver. I mean, if Denver sucked, they probably would have done something. But right now, Denver's 9-2 and tied with the Patriots for the best record in the NFL. Man, they are good on defense. That is going to be a test. I'd love it if Jaden was back for that. I'd love it if his first game back, if Terry and Noah Brown and some of the others were back, if they were healthier on offense, would love to see what they would look like in that first game against Denver's defense. All right, the question is, do you want to see him kind of lose enough to end up with a really high draft position, a.k.a. tank? Again, it's really not a conversation that you can have about the NFL. They only have a certain number of players, and basically the team they're putting out there right now is a tank team. So you've already got that situation now. But, I mentioned the players that you'd like to see more of, or I'd like to see more of. I'm fine with that. But for me, I want to see them try to win. I want to see their starting offense together for the first time over a several game stretch. That would be nice to see. And then if we get to, the final game of the season, or even the final 2 of the season, and, it's, there's, you don't want to get Jaden's played 2 or 3 in a row, offenses look good, then you can maybe shut it down. Although, in the NFL, man, if you get to that Christmas Day game against the Cowboys, and it's a big game for the Cowboys and for other NFC teams, this is where I don't think Quinn's going to bury this season at any point. It's just not been his MO. Even in seasons in Atlanta where they didn't go to the postseason, I mentioned this already. The final 4 games of a season, Dan Quinn is a head coach, 20-4. 20-4 over the final 4 games of every single season he's been a head coach in the league. They don't bail on any year. There's not a half-assed approach to it. There just isn't. Let's go to our guy, Anthony in D.C. Anthony, go ahead.
So, Kevin, there's two approaches to this. One is the player's approach, where, of course, they have to play to win. And then there's the fan approach.
Right.
I want them to be competitive, but I could care less if they win. Winning the game, a meaningless game, doesn't do anything for me right now. There's no upside for it when you really think about it. Play hard, play competitive, give the other team a run for their money, but winning does
bow out at the end, losing overtime on a field goal after a pick. Yeah.
Winning does absolutely nothing for you. When from our perspective, when you look at it logically, what does a win do?
Well, I think when you have the core of what you want your team to, the core of your elite level players, which is your quarterback for starters, hopefully still a wide receiver who I think will be back next year, because next year is actually the 1-year contract extension for Terry. I don't, I want to see these guys continue to have that feeling that they can go out and win games. I think that, there's very little carryover effect. As Anthony, you and I are the same age, and we've been watching the same thing for years. When teams came back pretty much intact, there was carryover effect. The NFL's so now completely different every single season. It's almost different, within the season, as we've talked about for years now. The carryover effect really isn't there. But when you've got your starting quarterback of the future, and he hasn't played a lot this year, and hasn't played really at all with the players that that he played with last year, I'd like him to play with those players. I'd like them to play well, and I'd like them to do everything they can to win the game. And yeah, I wanted them to win Sunday. I really wanted them to win, not just because I bet them. I really wanted to see them come out of this thing and go into the bye week with, hey, man, if we get a little bit of healthy, maybe we can make a little bit of a run. But I respect your opinion. I don't think the difference between 6 and 11 in the draft is going to be, it could be a big difference. It isn't always, though, as we know that sometimes the best players end up coming from later rounds anyway.
Real quick before you let me go. Yesterday you had Ben on, and he said he gave that cliche about building momentum going into the off season. I think that's one of the dumbest cliches ever uttered by anybody. There is no momentum.
Yeah, be clear, it wasn't Ben's cliche.
As the next play.
Yeah.
No, I know, but he said it.
Right.
Build momentum going into next season. What momentum? We're talking from the end of the season to the beginning of the next season. We're talking 6 months. How is that going to carry over to the field? There's no such thing as momentum. Momentum is a state of mind.
Yeah, I would disagree with that within the aspect of a few hours of a game. And I know that there's all sorts of psychological things out there and analytical things out there that suggest that momentum's really not a thing. I think that's BS when you're in the moment in a game, and there's a lot of forward momentum and confidence that can breed from something that's happened. But yeah, season to season now in the NFL, really things just change too much. It's just really, there just isn't that much carryover. Let's go to Ryland. Ryland, go ahead.
Hey, Kev.
Hey, Ryland.
So I'd have to disagree with the momentum comment there, because I think if you actually get the offense on the field for the first time, like you say, since week 1, things start clicking with Jaden back, and you kind of run the table per se and win the last 4 all division games, there would be some sort of different kind of onset look into the offseason, what next year could be. But with a finish that is 4 divisional games, if you're a competitor or, as they say, a true commander, you better damn sure want to win those games. I mean, it's a week-to-week league for a reason. And if you can spoil the Cowboys Christmas and kick the Philadelphia Eagles in the teeth twice, I mean, what are you doing not to do that? So I think if Jaden's back, get the ones back on the field and see what we can do here and kind of end the season strong and then build it into next year and see what we can do with a healthier team kind of in 2027.
Yeah. And by the way, if he's back, the conversation will be about, well, do you want to see him run? Do you want to see him scramble? Do you want to see him call designed runs? We can have that conversation when we get there. There will be some things that I will suggest or hope. Like, I don't want to see a heavy zone read and a heavy designed run game. But I don't want to see him not scramble, because I think sometimes scrambling saves him from a potential injury in the pocket. And it's what makes him great. I want to see him do what makes him great. But from a play calling standpoint, certainly helping him out if they've got all their players and being able to run the football and being able to, on Sunday, we saw the benefit of being able to run the football a little bit. Play action worked. Quick game worked. A lot of that stuff I'd like to see when he gets back. Robert in Annapolis, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Yes.
To each his own. I've never not rooted for my teams to win. I don't give thought to things like draft or next season till the draft or next season. So
that's because you root for a team that doesn't. You don't have to worry about that ever.
Well, I understand that, but this, it also applies to the Wizards. I kind of hope that they do well, but anyhow, the point is, it's entertainment to me. I root for my team to win and do the best. And you made a good point. You want your better players, your ones, and I understand that with the young players, get out there and see what they can do. You don't want to have this go on for the rest of the season. That would be terrible. And Kevin, if I may, you mentioned the Joe Theismann game. Hard to believe 40 years went by like that, but I was at that game. You said you were at that game. I was at that game also. And the thing I remember, two things besides the injury and Schrader coming in and making some big plays. The Giants had a running back named Joe Morris who came onto the scene in that game. He had some long runs. And when I was leaving the game, that was a Monday night game, and I had to get out of the way of a limousine, and I looked in the limo, and it had O.J. Simpson and Joe Namath. That was the year that I think Simpson only did that 1 year, or maybe Namath only did it 1 year. But I saw both of them go by right in front of me.
So Gifford called the game with Namath and Simpson? Both of those guys?
Yeah, Gifford was the play-by. My recollection for the TV, Gifford was the play-by-play guy, but
I think that was the last year Gifford did Monday Night Football. I think Al Michaels took over the next year. If I'm
keep
my memory
in mind,
serves me
Simpson and Namath weren't there long. I think Namath only did a year, and Simpson maybe two, but they were both there that year. And I mean, literally 2 feet in front of me, there they went. And of course, their lives went in different directions. But anyhow, thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, Joe, that was, I'm looking at it right now because I was like, Joe Morris wasn't a rookie that year. But to your point, it was his breakout.
Him on the scene with some long
runs.
It
was his breakout season. Breakout season in '85 for him. That was the year, by the way, they got beat by the Bears 21-0 in the first divisional round playoff game. Then they shut out the Rams, right? The Bears shut out the Lions and the Rams in the two playoff games and then crushed the Patriots in the Super Bowl, but I think gave up 10 in the Super Bowl. I think that's right. The 85 Giants, they won a playoff game because they knocked out Montana in the wild card game. Remember, they knocked out Montana in that game, Robert, and then got beat by the 85 Bears 21-0. God, man, the Bears in 85, 21-0 over the Giants in the first playoff game, 24-0 in the NFC Championship game against the Rams and Eric Dickerson. By the way, Dieter Brock, who came from the CFL, was the starting quarterback. I think they had less than 100 yards of offense. I want to look that up because I think that might be true. I mean, their defense is the all-time greatest. 130 total yards, my fault. 130 total yards in a playoff game against the Bears. The Giants that day that they got beat 21-0 had 149 total yards. Wow. Those 85 Bears, by far the best defensive football team of my lifetime of watching football. And yet Marino and the Dolphins lit them up in December on Monday Night Football. All right, back to the phone lines. Let's go to Paulie. Paulie's on hold. Go.
Big guy, how you doing? Here
What's up?
Yeah, so you're asking me, do we want to tank, huh? I think a 6-game losing streak is pretty much tanking. You know?
Yeah.
But but I've been calling for this for a couple of weeks, more than a couple of weeks now, man. If they ain't got a 2-year plan on the player, then I don't want to see him. Like, I don't want to see Noah Brown anymore. I do want to see Terry come back. I do want to see Jaden come back. I do want to see them play with that offensive line. You know what I mean? Guys that's going to be with us moving forward, yeah, bring them, let them play. But I do believe in momentum. You know who's going to build some good momentum coming into next year? Jordan McGee. That's why I want to see the players like McGee and Madrano and, and Trinity. That's why I want to see these guys play. Because you want them to build confidence coming into the next season. You know,
well, more than that, you want to evaluate them as whether or not they are going to be a part of the plan.
Well, listen, if they draft picks from the past 2 seasons, they better be part of the plan, or there's a bigger problem going on.
Well, when you draft 6th and 7th round picks, you're not sure they're going to be a part of the plan. You're drafting players you like, but you're not sure until they get up and start playing.
Yeah, but you know exactly, and they're not playing them. That's why they need to play.
What do you mean? I mean, your guy Bill was going to be the rookie of the year a few weeks ago.
He wasn't my guy, Bill. My guy was Robinson. He wasn't mine. Everybody loves Bill. I only support him because he's my guy. He's on my team, but he wasn't my guy. You know what I mean? Hey, you know who my guy is. You know who I want, Sheehan. I've been telling you for 3 weeks now. You know who I want. But anyways,
remind me. Sorry, I'm not auditing every one of your, every time you come on the call to see what you've said to me in the past. Who's the player?
Jeremiah Love. You know who I want.
Yeah. But he's not on the team. Yeah.
No,
okay, so look.
Let me say this. But then it comes to a point where you also have to start shutting people down, like Kinlaw. You know, you got to shut down some of these investments too, because it's a lost season. So some of these players you have to look at and say, you know what, this is why we playing these young players too, because now you got to start saving yourself from yourself.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I just wouldn't think about that now. I wouldn't think about that on November 30th when they play Denver or December 7th when they play Minnesota.
So, I mean, I'm just saying it's a good way to get some of these other players that you want to evaluate moving forward.
Yeah.
Look,
they've been doing this. They've been doing this for 6 weeks anyway. They've been putting players out there, and they've been evaluating players they had no clue that they were going to be evaluating before the season started.
Well, you know what? They should. It's real crazy how that Green Bay Packers game foreshadowed our whole season, because we wasn't good when we was healthy anyway. So that's what I've been thinking about all week long. Like, man, that Green Bay Packers game really showed us how bad this team really was, even without the injuries. We wasn't a good team. Like, this was an epic fail from the top to the bottom.
Yeah, I don't feel that way about that early portion of the season. I mean, I think that game is kind of an aberration typically anyway on these Thursday night games. I did think, though, and I do remember thinking, wow, they are not as good as they looked in the opener on defense. They couldn't cover anybody. Remember Tucker Kraft? He just kept catching balls and running with nobody near him.
Romeo died. But look, last week you said if they'd have won the Bears and the Falcons game, we'll be looking at 5-5. And I thought about when you said that, like, yeah, we might have been 5-5, but we still would have been getting our ass kicked like we did by the other 3 teams, like Seattle, Detroit, Kansas City.
Yeah.
We still wasn't.
We're just too bad on defense, even healthy.
Right. Even healthy.
Yeah.
Same thing with the offense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
well, offensively, we never got a shot to see what we would have been.
So
we never got a shot.
My whole point, really, it was a lost season from the beginning. I mean,
well, I don't feel that way. I disagree with that. It wasn't a lost season from the beginning. They were 2-1 after 3 weeks. It was a lost season once they started to lose everybody, most notably the starting quarterback and their second best offensive player, their starting wide receiver. No, that's when it really became a lost season because they had no chance to hang in there with the defense that they had.
Exactly, because even when we are healthy, we're not competing with the upper echelon team.
Not on defense. But I certainly would have envisioned a much better season offensively had they been intact, because it was actually a better offensive line this year than it was last year.
They cut the kicker. We couldn't even count on the kicker. What are you talking about, Sheehan?
We couldn't count on the kickers last year.
We could count the offense and but the kicker, the kicker won games for us last year.
Yeah.
We had one game, and that was the Cowboy game, when Steven was coming off an injury, but he shouldn't have been kicking anyway. But outside of that, even though we went through kickers, the kickers won games for us last year. These kickers losing games for us. So everybody could have been healthy. The offense could have been good, and we still could lose to Seattle because we missed a field goal. We still could lose to Miami because we missed a field goal. This wasn't a
Coulda,
good
woulda,
team
shoulda.
this year.
You answered the question. You want to? Why are you getting so worked up?
Injuries. Because, man, this was a wasted damn season.
You've been picking them every week.
That's my team. What I'm supposed to do, Sheehan?
You've been saying all year, it's about to turn around. It's about to turn around.
What am I supposed to do?
I hear you. I hear you. But I mean, the lost season is just kind of a convenient narrative. I mean, had they been a healthy football team, I have no idea what we would have seen, with the exception of God.
You seen it against Green Bay. We was out there against Green Bay.
You didn't see it in Green Bay. You saw the defense, Green Bay. You saw a 4-day turnaround. They got absolutely manhandled on the line of scrimmages. Actually, the Green Bay hey, just stop for a sec. The Green Bay game actually in many ways was a head fake as far as the offensive line goes, because they got absolutely dominated by a 4-man front. And as it's turned out, the offensive lines had a decent season. Early in the season, it's just like the Patriots. They lost to the Raiders in week 1.
Because they misevaluated the offensive line. Hey, you can ask G from the shop. I told him to start the season, and even after that game, I said, why is Al Grady playing, and why is Brandon and Wiley playing?
That's true. Al Grady played in that game. Yep. Al Grady and Coleman. Yeah, all right. Okay, good. Well, do me a favor. Why don't you put together a list of all the things you got right, and maybe just, acknowledge one thing you may have gotten wrong, and you can call me tomorrow with that. Let's go to G. G will have some comments on Paulie's call. God, he gets worked up sometimes. I don't even think I said anything to get him worked up.
Yeah, that's because he don't live around me enough, and he don't smoke weed like with me enough.
Exactly. We gotta chill that guy out a little bit.
You just had a Bama named Paulie call talking about shut Kinlaw down and protect your investment, but at the same call he said when Jaden is ready and Terry is ready, bring them back for a season.
That's because we haven't seen them. I understand where he's coming from on that.
No, and I disagree with both of y'all. That's like putting lipstick on a pig. I told you weeks ago that's taking a Viagra when you at home by yourself. There's no point to it. You know what I'm saying?
No point to what? Hold on. I'm missing the point. What did you tell me a few weeks ago? Sorry, I'm not keeping track of everything you guys got right all season long.
You ain't got to keep track on me. You told.
What did you say? What did you say? I didn't even understand what you just said.
I told you I disagreed with you saying that if Jaden was healthy for 4 games left in the season and the season didn't matter.
Oh, you want to
sit his ass down.
You want to shut him down.
That's like
got it.
That's like putting lipstick on a pig, man. You heard? And shout out my man Robert from Annapolis, because you said Robert from Annapolis cheers for a team that is a perennial winner. But when you really look at it, 10 years ago, they were bottom feeders. They got Lamar Jackson 3 years later. 5
bottom
years
feeders.
Ago,
they won the Super Bowl in 2012.
Sir. No, sir. 10 years ago.
Don't call me sir. Don't call me sir.
Hey, Sheehan, Kevin.
Yeah.
Like, what do you want? Like, you want politeness? Like,
yeah, I don't want politeness from you. I want you to. When you say 10 years ago, what was that? The last year of
No, you're a numbers guy. You do a Super Bowl trivia off of numerals sometimes. And you don't know 10 years ago is 20.
Well, tell me what the Ravens did 10 years ago. I don't know.
No, sir. That Kevin Sheehan, 10 years ago, the Baltimore Ravens was bottom feeders.
Okay.
2 years later, they got Lamar Jackson. 3 years after that, they had the MVP of the league in Lamar Jackson. So you go through ups and downs. That's why I said shout out to my man Robert from Annapolis, because I don't cheer for losses neither. I don't cheer for tanking. But hey, another shout out to that NASCAR analogy caller you had, because I don't watch NASCAR.
Me neither.
Breaking news. But you know what I have done, Sheehan?
What?
I've bought numerous cars for $1,200 just to get to work. And that's what we're doing. We're just getting to work and doing the job. And sometimes the work is bad days. And you still make your money. And you make it to the next day. And what you do is in the draft, because the season is over. You're talking about bring them back in Denver. That's an AFC team. We done lost to every NFC team there is in contention. So we don't have a shot. So what you do for that $1,200 car that we're driving right now, you put tents on it. You put a new little radio in it just to make you feel better driving to work. You get ready for the draft. You don't root for losses, but you hope for the best for the next day. That's what I'm saying, Sheehan. You gave all these callers
You got
all
a little
this
worked
time,
up in this
and you
call.
kept me on hold. Man,
I
basketball
didn't
season.
keep you on hold. I never keep you on hold. I got to go. Just
Basketball
know this. The
season,
Ravens
Sheehan.
had one losing season during that stretch. They were hardly a bottom
Oh,
feeder.
no, you're tripping.
And
No,
also
you're
remember, they didn't
Look
get
at
Lamar
22
Jackson
teams.
off of a high draft choice.
Hey,
They
bruh.
drafted him 32nd
bruh.
in the first round.
Hey, bro, I'm a
Yeah,
high
bro.
level dude. I look at everything. I watch every game. I watch every position. I watch the standings. That's why I'm glad you really prefaced with the Dan Quinn, because I did the math and I'm like, damn, we well past the season, Dan Quinn. What the hell are you talking about? Like, you need to know the standings, because Ron Rivera, he burnt my britches with gonorrhea when he didn't even know we was out with Cleveland.
You got to go. You know what? Instead of going to the smoke, go get some penicillin for that thing, for that gonorrhea. I got to go. I got to get to other callers, and we got to get to a break now anyway. Stay on hold. We'll take more of your calls. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, theteam980.com. Also, you can watch the show on the Team 980's YouTube page. a text from a doctor that I know. I'll just say from a doctor that I know. Penicillin not used for as many STDs anymore, although it still works for us. Thank you for that. I didn't think that's what we would be talking about today. Thank you to G from the shop for that. Apparently not used for other STDs, but yes, penicillin still used for syphilis. Just in case you were wondering.
The more
I
you
would
know.
take doctor's advice, your doctor's advice, not this show's advice from doctors that text in. Not that I don't believe in my doctor friend. I do. I guess fun facts to know and tell. Let's go to Hal in Kensington. Hal's been on hold for a while. Hal, what do you think? Should they play out this season for the worst possible record? Is that what you're rooting for? Best possible draft position? How would you like to see the final 6 games handled by the franchise?
Well, I think you've all, Kevin, thanks. I think you've all pretty much hit where I am, which is do your best, but definitely evaluate as well. And I don't really think it's up for debate. The problem with tanking, among many other things, I've discussed this with you in the past, is like you said, you may get a worse pick if you pick earlier. Chase Young, right? I mean, I was going to say if you're guaranteed a top edge rusher by losing every game for the rest of the season, maybe you could argue it's worth it. But you got Chase Young, and I think he's out of the league at this point.
That was the last time. Well, no, I openly rooted
problem.
for them to lose at the end of 2023 so that we would get a shot at Jaden Daniels. But the 2019 season, Chase Young was the guy, no doubt. You know, Joe Burrow went 1, and you knew Chase Young would be there too. And they played the Giants late in the season. And I remember saying, I'm rooting for an overtime loss. You know, I'm rooting for a sign that, you know, they're making some strides with some of their young players, but an overtime loss. And that's exactly what happened in that game. They lost in overtime, like 41-35.
Also, I just want to say there may or may not be momentum. I'm sort of lean against it, especially season to season. But there's one thing called chemistry, and you develop chemistry by playing with the best players. So you want Jaden on the field with guys who might develop.
I agree.
Into contributing receivers going forward. So I just don't think there's any benefit to deliberately not trying to win. But evaluate. But you're evaluating in part because the guys you're putting on the field right now aren't going to be winners for you going forward. So,
well, the guys you're evaluating right now, the guys that are playing for you right now are, in many cases, a lot of young players and players off the street that you're evaluating at, because you have no other choice. I mean, look, maybe Treylon
100%.
Burks was the best find of this whole disastrous injury, ravaged season. He's a former first-round pick, and the game that he played after he had, a week of practice actually was the best receiver game we've seen in a while. And he's a big dude. Maybe he could be a big part of next year. Who knows?
I have not followed the team that closely, I have to admit, but I will just say this. It's been a really disappointing season, I think. And again, I've not been a rabid fan by any means. In fact, I've not liked the team until very recently, but I was expecting more. I was hoping for more. And even with the injuries, I got to be honest with you. I'm not saying I don't feel Jaden is the answer. I'm not saying that at all. But I look around the league and I look at Drake May and I look at Herbert and I look at possibly Jackson Dart, and I'm not convinced he's going to be, the class of the young quarterbacks the way I was convinced at the end of last season.
Yeah, because he played.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah, it helps.
Thank
it
you.
helps when the quarterback plays, and plays on a team that is professional in the spots in which you need, professionals out there. I just can't agree with that at all. And it has nothing to do with even my belief in Jaden Daniels and my real, sort of sports love for Jaden Daniels and what he is as a player and what he provided. There's no way objectively I could sit here and tell you that there was any way to evaluate Jaden Daniels' second season. Not yet, anyway. We could have another 4 games of him or 5 games of him this year, but yeah, that kind of when Yeah, it's easy to say, wow, Drake May, who's been phenomenal. He's the one out of that class, more so than Caleb for me. In terms of watching them as pros, he looks like the real deal. I don't care how poor the schedule's been, et cetera. He looks like the real deal to me. But to evaluate Jaden, to say, yeah, see, I think he's taken a step back. Well, sure, because he didn't play this year, basically. He played 5.5 games.
Well,
they played 11. He's played half of the games. And in 2 of them, he wasn't right physically.
Kevin, just to be fair to me, I'm not saying he isn't great. What I'm saying is I was convinced at the end of last season he was the class of the young quarterback.
Because he played 17 and played great. And those other guys, many of them didn't even get an opportunity, nearly enough of an opportunity, right? I mean, Penix didn't start his first game until late. Bo Nix got the opportunity. He was the other one that started all the games. I don't even think Drake May started every game. Didn't Jacoby Brissett start the season as New England starter last year? Am I wrong about that? I may be wrong about that. I don't think Drake May started his rookie year. Yeah, I got to move on. Thanks, though, Hal, for the call, as always. Really appreciate it. Let's go to Aveen. Aveen, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Hey, Kevin. Yeah, Drake May started the last 10 games for last season.
Last 10, right? Who was the starter early? Was it Brissett?
Brissett, yeah. And they were a disaster. I mean, May went 1-9 last year, so it just shows how much of a difference a year can make.
Well, and a coaching staff, right?
Yeah.
For sure, and an offensive coordinator. Yeah.
But, Kevin, I'm on the same page with you as this. I think the most important thing for the team and for the organization is Jaden's development. And that's not to say anything against him. He's really advanced and really high IQ for his age and experience, but he's still relatively inexperienced. He needs to get reps. And I think it'd be a great thing for him to come back this season and reestablish himself and remind everybody that he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And to do that, he needs his guys back. So we need to be playing Terry and Noah because we didn't get to see it with them, and including Ertz. Ertz should be playing too. So I'm not for playing young guys. I want to see Jaden with his guys, the guys.
I do too on offense. I'm with you on that. I want to see.
Right,
I want to see offensively. I want to see the team that we thought we were going to see this year for more than a game and a half. That's what I'd like to see, and that's essentially what we've seen him for, right? Aveen, the Giant game and half of the Green Bay game.
Yep. And there's even a part of me that's kind of like, man, if we had just brought back, Zacchaeus and Diami Brown, guys he really built chemistry with and trusted, maybe we would have a couple more wins. But I just want to say, I still feel like we're in a great spot because we have, to me, I think I would not have any other young quarterback other than Jaden Daniels. May has been great, but I still think, Jaden's the most down-to-down, polished, accurate, advanced. There's nobody I'd rather have than him. So it's just pretty much because of him that we're in a great spot. But I will say this to end, Kevin. I mean, you look at the young quarterbacks this year, and you look at the defenses they have. You see Nix with an elite defense, May with an elite defense.
Yeah.
Caleb Williams has a defense that forces a lot of turnovers. Stroud, Herbert, they all have good defenses. And I'm just like, you just look at Peters and Quinn, and you're like, come on, guys. Is it really that hard to give Jaden a competent defense? The pressure is on you guys this offseason to get him a competent defense. I mean, all the other young quarterbacks have it. So there's pressure on those guys because it's not Jaden. It's nothing with him or the offense. The offense wasn't healthy, but they have to get this defense right, and they're under pressure to do it.
I mean, look, it's not even just Aveen. It's not even just the young quarter. Let me take a step back because I think you hit on a point, not that we haven't talked about it in the past, but it's worth emphasizing. The support for a young quarterback doesn't just come with receivers, offensive line, good coordinator, etc. It comes by having a really good defense that doesn't put every game into a, well, you better score on this drive or else mode. So you've seen that with the other young quarterbacks, in the situation Nix is in, the situation Drake May's in. They've got the number one rush defense in the league, but it's not even just that. Look at Sam Darnold. Why is Sam Darnold flourished? Yes, part of it is Kevin O'Connell, and the year before that, the brief time that he was with Kyle Shanahan, and this year with Clint Kubiak. But Minnesota's defense last year and Seattle's defense this year. Those are big deals. Baker Mayfield's reemergence into being a great quarterback has coincided with playing on a team with Todd Bowles and an excellent defensive football team. Jaden has played, and by the way, Marcus Mariota has played with a terrible defensive football team. Over the last, 20, 30 games they played, now 31 games after Sunday, 31 games, the quarterbacks of this team and the offense of this team has played in 24 of these games with a horrendous defensive football team. Horrendous. So it matters. It does. All of that, matters. Look at Bryce Young this year. Why is Bryce Young succeeding? They're running the football and they're stopping the run. Why CJ Stroud, that first year, great defense. Why was he having success this year? The season's going, I know, we'll see if he comes back. Great defense. God, Washington has an absolute terrible defensive football team. And it does skew some of what you see offensively. Last year, they overcame it with brilliance. This year, they just haven't had enough bodies on the field to overcome it. And I think because of the schedule they played this year, they weren't going to be able to overcome it anyway. As much as I think the results would have looked a lot different had they been a healthy football team, I think we've seen enough of even some of the starters defensively, especially in the secondary, when they were a bit healthier. This was going to be a long year defensively. All right, stay on hold. We'll do one more segment of would you like them to tank the season? I do want to mention real quickly Window Nation's current deal. It's their end-of-year sale, which means 50% off on all windows and window styles. So no matter what window type of window you purchase, you're going to get 50% off as a discount. And then if you decide that you want to finance the purchase, 0% interest for 5 years. Window Nation has the product, they've got the offer, and they're also a great company to work with. As a listener to this show, they're going to take really good care of you. They have been at the top of every customer service list. The number one window installation company in America per Forbes magazine, 45,000 five-star reviews, a 96% customer satisfaction rating. It's going to work out. It always works out for everybody that listens to this show that uses Window Nation. If you've been thinking about new windows, do it now before winter really arrives. Call them at 866-90-NATION or head to windownation.com to schedule your free in-home estimate. Again, between now and the end of this month, 50% off all window and window styles and 0% interest for 5 years. 866-90-NATION. windownation.com.
All right. Happy Tuesday, everybody. It is November 18th. The Commanders, they cut Matt Gay yesterday after an up and down year through 11 weeks. They have signed Jake Moody off of the Bears practice squad. He will presumably be the kicker for the Commanders going forward. And the Cowboys, they boat raced the Raiders on Monday Night Football last night. Quite a night for George Pickens as he notched 122 yards and a touchdown on 9 catches. Not much the Raiders can do to stop the Cowboys offense that looked like it hasn't lost a step after the bye week. Plus, college football, according to Pete Thamel, James Franklin is finalizing a deal to become the next head coach of Virginia Tech. And last night, the Caps, they get the win at home versus the LA Kings thanks to an Alex Ovechkin goal that put the Caps up 2-0. It's 492nd in Capital One Arena. That's the most all-time in a single building in NHL history. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch programs like Take Command and Denton's Office throughout all of football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us. Turn on notifications, stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
From my brother, he texted me and he said, "Is Deron Payne done for the year?" I haven't seen that. Have you seen that?
I have not. I've not seen that.
Okay. Can you please look on Twitter?
I am actively looking right now.
Oh. My fault. He's asking me about Pharrell Payne, the Terp center. He said Payne, and I just assumed he meant Deron Payne. I don't know if Pharrell Payne is out for the year or not. Buzz Williams is very secretive with injuries. So scratch what I came into the segment with. I just read it right before I came on, and I was like, wait a minute. No, he meant the other Payne. Okay, 301-230. I think Bobby in North Carolina texted me the same thing earlier this morning. Question, and we're just going to let me get through a lot of these calls, okay? Be quick and to the point. Sorry about some of the other callers who haven't been. I enjoy them, though. Be quick and to the point. Do you want to see him basically lose out for better, draft position? Ross has been on hold for a while. Ross, go ahead.
All right, Kevin. So I feel as though they're going to continue to put the best players available to them out there, and they're going to give it the effort without tanking. Best case scenario, we're going to lose out and get a good pick. But worst case scenario, we might beat the Giants and we might beat the Eagles at the season's end when they ain't got nobody to play for. But I don't know if
we don't play the Giants. We play the Eagles twice in the last 3 weeks. The Cowboys.
The Eagles.
We play the Giants early enough in December. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, those are the two games I see us winning, like with what we've been doing. And it's be really telling how the energy is. How the energy is in the building when HBO comes rolling in, because a lot of people forgot Hard Knocks is going to be showing up. So we're going to see the energy. The NFC East. And so, but people always forget, though, it's kind of like the 49ers. If they weren't contending for Super Bowls, they were picking in the top 5. So it's just, we're on that side of the court right now. But it's just going to be like a trust the process situation. And before you know it, Kevin, this team's going to be the Harrison of Jeopardy. If you've been keeping up with Jeopardy, that kid's an absolute beast.
I haven't been watching it recently. I think I turned it on briefly last night, and the guy had like $30-something thousand and was way ahead. So how many nights in a row has he won?
Last night was his sixth game in a row, and he's like getting like 3,200 to like they're like 100 negative 1,000. The kid's from Indiana, so I'm a little invested with that. But okay. And I also want to see Dan Quinn real quick before you let me go. He needs to hire either a young up-and-coming defensive coordinator and he calls the plays, or hire your Vic Fangio or your Steve Spagnuolo defensive-minded coach that will never get another head coaching job, and they're just chilling. And you can
Well, I mean, I wish there was a Vic Fangio or Steve Spagnuolo out there. Maybe with Jim Schwartz. I mean, I'm thinking that Kevin Stefanski is not going to make it and the whole staff gets boomed. Maybe a guy like Jim Schwartz. I don't know about the relationship. Thanks, Ross. Let's go to Mark and Clinton. Mark's been on hold for a while. Mark, thanks. Go ahead. Mark. Mark. Put Mark on hold. Go to Tim in DC. Tim, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin. First time caller, long time listener. Thanks for taking my call. Hey,
Thank you, Tim.
I don't know no other way but to put Jaden Daniels and them out there and try to win. Like, everybody talking about the season, how they talking about the end of the season, but the season not over. Like, it's still much to get accomplished with this season. It may not be a Super Bowl, but I still want to see the offense out there. I'm not trying to lose every game. We got Dallas, Philly twice. We want to lose to them. I don't want to see them win. I'm not going to go into the game. Of course, I want a higher pick, but I think about that in the offseason, man. Thanks for taking my call, man.
This is, to me, just so much different than 2019 when you knew a whole new coaching regime was coming in. 2023, same thing. I mean, you were flipping the whole damn thing. And you didn't have a quarterback. So the higher, the better. I understand that if it ends up 3-14, but they went out there and played well, and, that might be the best overall benefit. But I'm not thinking about that week to week. Right now, I want to see them healthy on offense for 3, 4, 5 games. That's what I'd like to see. Jaden back, Terry back. I don't care whether Noah Brown's going to be on the roster next year. I want to see them and see what it looks like with their best players on offense on the field with, by the way, an offensive line that has been a strong unit and a positive, maybe the only positive to take out of this year. So I'd like to see that. And by the way, the conversation is so irrelevant anyway, because Dan Quinn and that staff, they're going to win games. It's what he's done throughout his career. He's 20-4 in the last 4 games of every single season. He's been a head coach, and not every one were they still in it, mathematically. Let's go to Bobby in North Carolina. Bobby, go.
Hey, Kev. It's loser talk, tanking. We got a third of the season left, man. I mean, that's just ridiculous. People talking about tanking for a stupid draft pick. No, let's freaking buckle up and go to war Sunday after Thanksgiving and try to beat the Broncos and then the rest of the games. We need some good mojo down the stretch, Kevin. It's been a season from hell from everybody that supports this team. We need some good feelings going into the off season for just to start tanking right now, which they're not built like that. You tell Jaden, well, you're healthy, but we're not going to play you anymore. That's loser talk, Kevin. That's going to bounce off those walls.
Well, it's absurd with him. He needs the reps. He's a second-year player. Yeah. Even though he played almost a season and a half last year because they went deep into the postseason, he needs to play, and I want to see him play. And by the way, I don't want to see this team completely, lose. I know everybody's suggesting competitive but lose. I want to see them competitive and win. I want to feel just as good about Dan Quinn as I did last year and as I do now, which means don't lose the team. Don't lose the team.
Kevin, you're right. If you go out and win, say 3 or 4 games down the stretch, give you some good feeling, everybody's going to realize this was a season loss because of the injury bug, okay? So you got to get some good feelings down the stretch. Remember when Gibbs, first season, 0-5, they won 8 out of the last 11 games the first year Joe coached this thing. Next year, win the Super Bowl. You got to get some good vibes in the organization because, like I said, it's just been a terrible season for everybody. Just losing.
See you, Bobby.
Nobody expected it.
Yeah, thanks. We had 2 coaches that started 0-5 and won 8 of their final 11. Marty Schottenheimer did it as well and promptly got fired. Mark in Clinton, you're good now. Go.
Hey, the bottom line is the NFL is a professional league. They're not going to let, if it was that simple, just to tank, everybody would do it. They're not going to let you just tank, put out guys from Home Depot and Lowe's. It's not that simple. Let's tank it.
Yeah, we agreed.
The league is going to protect their shield. And the hot dogs and the tickets aren't free the last 6 or 7 games. You can't just throw guys out there from pickup basketball. Hey, we're going to tank. It's not that simple.
No, look, they basically are throwing guys out there right now. So it doesn't, they have no choice right now. They got guys on the roster that were never anticipated to be on the roster. And to your point, you only dress 46 and they're playing for their livelihoods. So the way you give yourself a chance potentially to lose a game, maybe for a key draft, slot at the end, is to not play your best players over the final 2 or 3 games. They haven't had their best players available through the first 11. We'll see if they're available through the final 6. Sorry to those of you that I didn't get to. We got to move on to a different topic. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the Team980.com.
only the second Dallas penalty of the game. Backs him up 5. Prescott able to step into it. It's got Pickens. Good move. Nice cut back and a touchdown.
Dallas might think of themselves as back in it. You know, they were 3-5-1 when they lost to the Cardinals in their last outing before their bye week. They lost Marshawn Kneeland to that very sad tragedy. He took his own life just a couple of nights after scoring a touchdown off a blocked punt in that game against the Cardinals. The Dallas Cowboys were back at it last night. There was a lot of emotion in the Monday Night Football game, and they look good. You know, this would be one of those situations where, like, you know, if we were still hovering around 3-5-1, 4-5-1, and you had a game like this one, you'd be a believer, because they held the Raiders to 27 yards on 12 rushes, 2.3 yards per rush in the first game of playing Quinnen Williams after the trade. He had a sack and a half. He hit the quarterback, Geno Smith, 5 times in the game. Had the best pass rush pressure in the game. He and Kenny Clark as D tackles. Dallas is a different defensive team overnight with that trade. Look, it's the Raiders. We'll see more on Sunday against the Eagles, but it's the Eagles. They can't score. They can't move the football. You know, if Dallas wins on Sunday at home against the Eagles, that will set up a game on Thanksgiving Day against the Chiefs where, you know, the winner is legitimately in it. The loser is probably out of it. Maybe not in Dallas's case. The Chiefs play the Colts this weekend. I was impressed with the Cowboys last night. Terrible team that they were playing, but they've been run over by terrible teams no matter what has gone on with their defense. Even the Jets moved the football against them with Justin Fields not that long ago. The Cardinals with Jacoby Brissett, you know, in their last outing, you know, rolled up, 27 points in a win over Dallas. And yet, last night with Quinnen Williams, and he is legit, and I thought it was a crazy trade because they're not going anywhere, but the Cowboys are one win on Sunday away from being 500 and thought of as a legitimate contender. To win what? Just to get to the playoffs. That's all. Back at 500. Quinnen Williams was dominant last night. Man, be nice to have one of those inside next year. Other news from the world of sports. James Franklin, the new head coach at Virginia Tech. He got bought out for $50 million. And so, part of the deal with Virginia Tech includes, a settlement to be able to leave Penn State after that buyout. Look, James Franklin isn't my favorite college coach by a long shot, but he went in 12 years at Penn State, and the 3 that preceded those years at Vanderbilt as a head coach, he went 128-60. That's 68.4% of his games they won. He was in the semifinals last year. He was in a Big Ten title game. Virginia Tech has had it bad for a while now. Does Franklin's, trip into Blacksburg, with a very rabid football fan base in a, great college town, he's going to be similar to sort of the feel of it. Will it turn things around? You got to swing big if you're Virginia Tech and you can afford it. And Franklin is a big swing. Like, I just couldn't get over the fact that he was just absolutely over against top 10 teams. And every big game that he lost, it seemed to come down to one of those game management, clock management sort of situations, which he would not do well in over and over again. But can he win a lot more than he loses at Virginia Tech? If they give him the resources, which he had at Penn State, he can. I think so. They passed, I read something last night where, Virginia Tech's board passed a plan to add, another $250 million into the athletic program over the next 4 years to make this job super attractive. And so it is James Franklin, the first of the openings, of the big openings to fall, goes to Franklin. A place that will not have an opening next year, the University of Maryland. So over the weekend, the new athletic director, his name is Jim Smith, he wrote a letter to Terp Nation. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically I'll read the first paragraph, portions of the middle portion of the letter, in the last paragraph. Jim Smith, new athletic director. And I think, by the way, a competent athletic director. They have been underserved in the AD area for a while now. He writes, "Dear Terp Nation, in my first 5 months as your athletic director, I've come to understand and deeply appreciate what Maryland pride truly means. I've quickly grown to love this university, our athletics department, our supporters, our fans, our staff, and most importantly, our student athletes. They are the lifeblood of everything we do. I stepped into this role at a time when the landscape of college athletics and college football in particular is undergoing unprecedented change. Over just the last 2 years, the expectations, requirements, and competitive realities of the Big Ten have shifted dramatically. To compete at the highest level, we must support and resource Maryland football in the same way our Big Ten peers do. A level playing field requires a level commitment. Coach Loxley bleeds Maryland, has deep, unmatched ties to the DMV, and has led this program to success unprecedented in our 133-year football history, including 3 consecutive bowl victories and 3 straight winning seasons from 2021 to 2023. Those accomplishments demonstrate what this program is capable of when aligned and supported. But in the 2 years since that run, the entire environment of college athletics has transformed. To continue building on this foundation, Coach Loxley needs and deserves the full support of our department, our university, and all of Terp Nation. We are fully committed to giving him and our student athletes the resources and investments necessary to succeed." So, Jim Smith, the new athletic director at Maryland, replacing Damon Evans, who was there for several years and left to take the job at SMU right before the NCAA tournament started last year, gives Coach Loxley his full support. Mike Loxley is not going anywhere. This was, a conversation over the last couple of weeks. Mike Loxley was asked about it last week. He said he thinks he isn't going anywhere and he deserves to stay. Mike Loxley's been the head coach at Maryland for 7 seasons, 7 full seasons. His first season was the COVID year. I'm sorry. His first year at Maryland was not the COVID year. His first year was 2019. The COVID year is a year that I'd almost like to exclude. It was impossible for everybody that went 2 and 3 and 5 games played. So if you look at the other, the other 6 seasons that he was the head coach, he has a 35 and 44 overall record, a 15 and 43 record in the Big Ten. Let me repeat that last part. In the Big Ten, Mike Loxley is the head coach of Maryland, is 15 and 43 if you take out the COVID year. If you leave it in there, 17 and 46. I'm not joking for those of you that don't pay attention to Maryland football. Most of you don't. That is his record. His overall record at Maryland, 37 and 47. But again, if you take out the COVID year, 35 and 44, a losing record. But the record in the Big Ten, 17 and 46, take out the COVID year, 15 and 43. That's not good. That's not good at all. Even in the 3 seasons in which his team won 7 overall, 8 overall, and 8 overall, and went to 3 bowl games, and by the way, won all 3 bowl games, he did not have a winning record in the Big Ten. So obviously, this is a resume that doesn't survive last year or the year before, let alone this year, in which they are now 1 and 6 in the Big Ten, 4 and 6 overall after starting 4-0. But But as I've discussed before, the situation at Maryland is unique. First of all, they're just getting into their full allotment, their full share of Big Ten media money. Jim Smith, who was on with us over the summer, talked about how I didn't even realize that Maryland hadn't been getting their full allotment. It took 10 years in the Big Ten before they could started to get their full share as a full Big Ten member. They were essentially getting partial shares of the media money. Now we've got a salary cap. Now we have, a ton more resources that aren't NIL driven, but they're media dollar driven. Everybody's got the same, level playing field when it comes to a $20.5 million salary cap. Now, the NIL part is still a part of it. It's still a piece of it. And Maryland is, behind the Big Ten powers in that particular area. Jim Smith was very clear that they haven't resourced football appropriately during Mike Locksley's reign, but that his goal was to do that. I've talked about Locksley before. Even without that full resourcing, he has recruited his ass off. Maryland's had top 25 classes. They've got the number one player in the country committed to Maryland in 2026. They have a freshman class this year that's played that looks really promising. But there's no doubt that in 9 out of 10 of these situations, the coach is long gone. But you've got an athletic director that wants to be patient, wants to resource it well, and also realizes that a $13 million buyout isn't easy for a school that has football a distant second in importance to its alum, to its booster group, to its students, even to just normal run-of-the-mill sports fans in the area that care about Maryland sports, whether they went to Maryland or not. They care more about basketball. We've talked about that many times. It angers people out in College Park when, basically everybody that talks about them for even a moment says it's a basketball school. It is. It just happens to be the case. It's a basketball first school. In many ways, look at the attendance they draw. It's a basketball only school. But Jim Smith is giving it a try to resource it properly now that they're into the full allotment of Big Ten money and with the salary cap to see how it works out. Now, I know that Maryland people, the biggest problem they had with Jim Smith's letter to Terp Nation is when he wrote that Coach Locksley bleeds Maryland, has deep and unmatched ties to the DMV, which is true. I mean, I've really enjoyed my conversations with Coach Locks over the years because he's got such great historical perspective on what Maryland football has been, because there have been moments where it's been pretty damn good. Not, national championship good, unless you want to go back to the 50s in Jim Tatum. They won a national championship in football. But the next line from Jim Smith, when he said he has led this program to success unprecedented in our 133-year football history. Yeah, that missed the mark by about 100 miles. Okay? Like Ralph Friedgen, the last good coach that we had in College Park, Ralph went to 7 bowl games in 10 years and won 5 of them. Now, they were in the ACC. They weren't in the Big Ten, but Ralph had a 75-50 overall record as the head coach at Maryland, 43-37 in the ACC, and they won an ACC championship in his very first season, and they finished second in the Atlantic Division of the ACC on 4 different occasions. They were within a whisker 4 other times of being in the ACC championship game once that ACC championship game was developed. Big difference between, 2001 to 2010 ACC and the Big Ten that Mike Locksley's been a part of. Maryland is truly among, they're not in the smart group. They're not in the, advanced classes. They are, with everybody else. They're not Michigan. They're not Ohio State. They're not Penn State. They're not Iowa. They're not Michigan State. They're not, whomever, Nebraska. I don't even know who I'm forgetting here on the list. They're at the bottom of the barrel in the Big Ten with Rutgers for the most part. But yeah, that part of the letter from Jim Smith, that should have been something where somebody should have read it before it went out and said, yeah, Jim, you can't write this. This not only is wildly inaccurate, it's going to make you look like you have no clue about the history of the program. Ralph's history, Bobby Ross's history of winning multiple ACC championships, in the 80s, being a preseason number 1 team in the country in 1985 in Sport Magazine. The AP, they were ranked 8th when the season began. And Mike Loxley even knows that. Mike was there for all those games. Mike was on Ralph's staff for a lot of those years. I mean, Ralph was an excellent college football coach. It's still to this day, and I've talked about this many times, so impressive to hear people who will just randomly bring up, the guy at Maryland, in the 2000s, the quarterback guru, the offensive guru. That guy was phenomenal. Studied a lot of his stuff. Ralph, in the coaching world, unbelievably respected as an offensive guy and a quarterback kind of guru. Yeah, not unprecedented success. 17-46 with an overall losing record, even though they went to 3 bowl games, and it was a lot better than the previous coaches. And he took over a program that was in shambles after the tragic death of that young man and that young offensive tackle. Okay, we understand what he took over as Maryland guys. And during those 3 seasons with Tia Tagovailoa, with Tua's brother, Talia, he was a really good quarterback. And they had some results. They won a couple bowl games. But yeah, that part of the letter, just a bit, high and outside. Missed by a lot. That's where it's like with our football team. I used to say all the time, you got to have some people around that can help the new people with kind of the avoiding of the big mistakes. When Jason Wright was here, it's like, just ask a few of us. There are 7 or 8 of us just in the media that could help you avoid the dumbass mistakes you made over and over again. Like just the obvious ones. This is one where, there are 10 people. You could have just said, hey, read this letter and tell me what you think. And we would have all said, yeah, the part where you wrote has led this program to success unprecedented in our 133-year football history. Scratch that part. He's 17-46 in the Big Ten. He's 37-47 overall. It's this century in which you had a coach that was actually really good. Now, they weren't Florida State, and they weren't Clemson, even though he beat Clemson several times. Beat ranked teams, beat top 10 teams. I think Maryland's last top 10 win, beating a top 10 team, was Ralph. They beat, actually, believe it or not, Boston College was in the top 10, and they beat them at home. Yeah, that part, not so good. With all that said, like I said last week when we had this conversation, I'm actually okay with whatever way it fell. I would have understood if they had moved on from Loxley. Clearly anybody would. You'd have to be a moron not to think that if he got fired, there was some level of justification given the record. And at the same time, I said, if they bring him back, I understand that too. It's just $13 million, even though it's not 50, and it's a paltry amount in today's landscape. But if they can't find somebody to pay it out, he's got a lot of good young players. Let's give Jim Smith a year to see it with better resources. I'm not a Loxley believer in terms of his coaching ability, but I am a believer in his leadership and his recruiting ability. So I'm going to give you Maryland fans a chance here. 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980. Mike Loxley got support. He's back for next year. He's not going anywhere. Jim Smith's letter to Terp Nation, ended with, I am confident that we have the right foundation in place, the enhanced resources that position us to compete at a higher level in 2026, and a coach who can truly own the DMV. Every decision we've made reflects our belief in this program's potential and its leadership. We are fully committed to getting this right and making you proud of our Maryland football program. Thank you for your loyalty, your passion, and your unrelenting Maryland pride. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm fine with this. I didn't like the letter because it was just so off in that one part, but I said it last week. If they bring him back, fine. If they don't, that's fine too. Why? Because it's Maryland football at this point. It's truly on the overall sports landscape in the DMV and in Baltimore so far down the list. I've told you before what it needs. It has to win big. It's a bandwagon team, which most teams in the DMV are. It's got to be top 10, 6-0, with Ohio State coming to town for people to really care. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but it's got to be 4-0 and ranked with a big-time opponent coming to town. They were 4-0. They weren't ranked. They were on the periphery of being ranked when Washington came to town in October, and they blew the big lead. So Maryland fans, Maryland Pride fans, are you okay with Jim Smith, the new athletic director's decision to keep Mike Locksley? 301-230-0980. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. Terp fans, you okay with Jim Smith, the new athletic director's decision to bring Mike Locksley back next year as Maryland's head football coach? 17-46 overall in the Big Ten is Mike Locksley's Big Ten record. I think you take 2020 and you throw it out. They played 5 total games. So, more like 15-43 and 10 games below 500 overall since he got here. There was the stretch with Talia Tungavailoa, 21, 22, 23, where they went to 3 straight bowl games. They were a 6-6 team, their first bowl season. Then they went and won an 8th game in 2022 and 2023. And those were 3 teams that were, pretty exciting offensively, not great defensively. But, they were competitive teams. Even in the Big Ten in their 4 and 5 seasons, they had some competitive games against some of the better teams. But for the most part, it's been, third tier of the Big Ten for Maryland, along with the likes of Rutgers and Purdue and a few others. Jim Smith said he's giving him all the resources. They're going to resource things differently. They're now into their full allotment of Big Ten money after, a decade of being in the Big Ten. And he's bringing Mike Locksley back. Some of that may just be, honestly, the $13 million buyout, nobody willing to step up and pay it. I said it last week. I'll say it again today. I am really not moved emotionally on this topic right now. Get me into the discussion about the men's basketball team, and I get much more animated and interested in all of the granular detail around it, including the Pharrell Payne injury. How about the Terps going to Marquette on Saturday and winning after losing their center to what looked like in the moment a gruesome leg injury? We'll find out more, I think, tomorrow. Buzz doesn't give you a lot of injury information, but I would imagine that if it was a snapped or broken leg out for the year, we would have heard that by now. There he goes into basketball talk. Back to football talk. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Are you okay with Jim Smith, the new athletic director's decision to bring Mike Locksley back for another season in 2026? Let's go to Samaj. Samaj, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Thanks for taking my call, man.
Sure.
Coach, God bless you. God bless you both. And, man, Kev, we've talked a lot over the years and given me some airtime. And, my passion level with the Terps all the way around is probably just as high as yours. And I'm not an alum. But just from a little kid and watching both, from hearing about Randy White when I was a pod to
greatest player to ever play for Maryland. The
no
number
doubt.
one.
Yep, no doubt. To Bobby's coming in, to Frank, all of it, man. And
Boomer, Frank Reich, yeah.
Yeah, and what you said about the Fridge and his lack of public notoriety, well spoke of in coaching ranks, but lack of public notoriety. I always get a little amazed when I get into a conversation about Maryland football and people that are in our age group don't have any recollection to Scott O'Brien in the 5th-ranked Maryland Terps going up against the SEC Tennessee in the Orange Bowl. And
Florida in the Orange Bowl. Tennessee was the Peach Bowl the next year, and they crushed Tennessee. But Rex Grossman and Spurrier crushed Maryland in that Orange Bowl.
Yeah, it was the Florida one. All right, so I'm sorry, I thought Tennessee was
That's right.
Florida. But either way, you're still talking SEC. You're still talking cream of the crop college football. And we handled that business. And then came back the following year, ranked 3rd in the year in the preseason polls. People forget all about that. So
I don't think we were ranked 3rd the following year. We may have been top 15. I don't think we were ranked 3rd. No chance.
I think so.
No.
Yeah,
we were never ranked.
I just know,
we were never in Maryland football's never been ranked preseason that high ever. I mean, maybe in the 50s. They were ranked 8th, I think, in 1985. 1985, they opened with Penn State, Labor Day weekend Saturday in College Park. I was in school. I was there. It was about 103 degrees. It was a 12 noon kickoff. They were number 1 in Sport Magazine before the season started, and they got beat when Alvin Blount fumbled deep into Penn State territory. They were in field goal range to kick a game-winning field goal. But they were never under Ralph preseason number 2 or number 3. Turgeon had Maryland ranked in the top 5 preseason a couple of times, but Ralph did not have them that high.
Oh my God, Kevin! I can't believe you even went Turgeon. You almost blew my brain.
Well, a lot of the anti-Turge said that Maryland was never ranked during his years. That used to crack me up. Yeah, they were preseason number 2 in 2015. I think they were top 10 preseason a couple of other times. But anyway, go ahead.
That's almost as bad as Mr. Smith's comments in his letter. Anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. My passion level is really high for all.
All right. So where are you?
That's what I was just about to say. Up until you revealed the behind-the-scenes info that Mr. Smith has laid out to the public, I woke up this morning like, I can't wait for the announcement, even though I know it's not going to happen because I can't believe Maryland's being so cheap and don't want to buy him out in a talent pool that we may never see again as far as coaching ranks that have legitimate resumes and background. But then after what you said as far as the backstory, what the hell? I mean, if all of what you said is true as far as what Maryland wasn't getting and now is about to get, combine that with Loxley's class of freshmen that he had this year and what's coming in next year. What the hell, man? Give him a shot. He'll have two classes back-to-back of top-grade talent that we've had probably since the Fridge years. So let's see what we got. And if it turns out to be another dud and we don't have the options, that's the choice we've made. So
yeah, the buyout will be less a year from now, et cetera. Yeah. We'll see. And this is a talented freshman group that he brought in this year. I mean, Mathis, Sidney Stewart, Malik Washington, they got some players that have played at a very high level as true freshmen. There's a lot of excitement about the kid they're bringing in. And so we'll see. I mean, I think it's going to be hard, honestly, for Maryland football to ever be at that Ohio State, Michigan level. But you don't but Indiana proved that in this era of an expanded playoff, Samaj, thanks for the call. Appreciate it as always. In this expanded, playoff era, you got a shot. Everybody's got a shot. Sometimes though it's about coaching up less because they're never going to have, I don't think, on the field what Ohio State has. Maryland has decent talent. They put players into the NFL. Locks has done a great job with recruiting and then preparing some of these players for the NFL. Jerry in Gaithersburg. Jerry, go ahead.
Kevin, good to talk to you. Go Terps.
Jerry, what's up, man? How are you?
I remind you, back in '85 in that game, the crowd was roaring. The Terps are out there with the ball. First play of the game. Penn State picks it off. Pick six.
Pick six to start the game, yeah.
That game goes. They said they looked at the film all summer long and they knew they were going to throw that pass, and they just picked it off. Anyway,
J.D. Marleveld and Rick Badanek on the cover of Sport Magazine. Somebody just sent it to me. Preseason number 1 team in the country. Back then, things like that mattered, But anyway, go ahead.
It lasted for one play. I go back to Ross and Friesian and Claiborne, real coaches. I think Locks is a great recruiter. He's a terrible coach because his team almost every year leads the Big Ten in penalties. I mean, really dumb penalties over and over and over. And he always says after the game, we need to address that. And he never does. There are guys that I really think they should have gone after Franklin. I think Franklin would have been
Virginia Tech's a much better job than Maryland. Franklin wasn't going to come to Maryland. He was going to have better options.
I don't know. I think they should have gone after it would give him a chance to stay in the Big Ten. He might have, who knows, he might have taken the job. But the letter that went out, oh my God! If you have any knowledge about the program, that was an absolute joke.
Yeah. I mean, I like Jim Smith so far. Had him on the show. Really nice guy, very smart. I think somebody needed to help him there. I don't put that on him. Somebody needed to help him. Whomever it was, he gave this letter to touch it up and to edit it needed to have some historical knowledge about the program. I mean, has led this program to success unprecedented in our 133-year football history. I mean, come on, man. Somebody's got to pick up on that one. It's almost like, the Sean Taylor stuff with Jason Wright.
After 7 years of Locks, he needs to know there's a lot more people at Maryland like me who lacrosse is number one, Maryland basketball, men and women second, and soccer. Men's soccer is even higher as far as I'm concerned than football. We're never going to win.
But football pays the bills, Jerry. Good to hear you. The phone's a little bit messed up. Appreciate it, though. Football pays the bills. The bottom line is, in college sports, in the Big Ten, in the SEC, in the Big 12, and in the ACC, it's all about football. Football generates all of the revenue, not all of it, but the lion's share of the revenue, and that revenue goes back to football. Even at a place like Maryland, where the fan base, the alums, the students care much more about basketball. The dollars don't go to basketball more than football. They go heavily to football. Football's more expensive, too. Many more players, equipment, the whole thing. I'm fine with this in part because I've become, when it comes to Maryland football, there's a bit of apathy. No doubt for me. No doubt. Real quickly, I want to tell you about Foley Mechanical. If you've got any issues with your HVAC system, like we did in our house about 6 months ago, Foley Mechanical is the call you have to make. Dan Foley came out himself, dealt with us directly. He owns 100% of the company. It's not a franchise. It's not, a big part of some big private equity firm. He controls the quality and the customer relationships, and he's a great guy. And the people that he's hired, professional, skilled, super sharp. Foley Mechanical is full service, heating, air conditioning, hot water, and boilers. And they're the go-to for older homes with radiator heat, a real specialty. They work across the DMV, and they proudly install Amana HVAC equipment. If your system needs help or you just want it done right, call Foley Mechanical or go to FoleyMechanical.com and tell Dan that I sent you.
All right, happy Tuesday, everybody. We start off with the Commanders. They cut kicker Matt Gay after an up and down year through 11 weeks. They've also signed Jake Moody off of the Bears practice squad. And last night, the Cowboys, they boat raced the Raiders on Monday Night Football last night. Quite a night for George Pickens as he notched 122 yards and a touchdown on 9 catches. Not much the Raiders could do to stop the Cowboys' offense. Look like it has not lost a step after the bye week. Plus, college football, according to Pete Thamel, James Franklin is finalizing a deal to become the next head coach of Virginia Tech. And last night, the Caps, they get the win at home versus the LA Kings thanks to an Alex Ovechkin goal that put the Caps up 2-0. His 492nd in Capital One Arena, the most all-time in a single building in NHL history. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type of the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch programs like Take Command and Denton's Office throughout all of football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
From Harry, Joe Burrow and Jaden, oddly enough, have had similar situations with bad defenses and had to carry both teams. So this could be another example of a quarterback who has to play flawless ball to win. But Jaden doesn't have Higgins and Chase. Yeah. And remember, Joe Burrow got injured in his first year. So it was his second year, right? He got injured in his first year. He got injured here at FedEx Field.
On a Chase Young tackle.
Yeah, and then his second year, they went to the Super Bowl, winning that, AFC title game at Kansas City. And they, by the way, that first year, they weren't that bad defensively, if my memory serves me correctly. They weren't a terrible defense. They've been terrible the last couple of years. But, you see these quarterbacks, even the best, they miss games, man. They miss games. But what Harry was what he was referring to is just earlier in the show we were talking about, right now a lot of the quarterbacks that are having success this year, whether they're super young quarterbacks or the resuscitated quarterback list, they're doing it with the support of not only good skill position players, offensive line coordinator, but I think we always forget to mention a big part of supporting a quarterback and an offense is not having a defense that gives up a touchdown or a field goal on every drive. Right now, Drake May's got the number one rush defense in the NFL. Bo Nix is playing with arguably the best defense in the NFL. Looking at the quarterbacks from last year, the last year quarterback draft, Caleb Williams has a great overall supporting cast on that team. And then I mentioned, a guy like Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's like, all of a sudden, his career's been resuscitated the last 2 years, right? Well, is it a coincidence that Justin Jefferson was his number one receiver in Minnesota last year? Jackson Smith-Njigba is his number one receiver in Seattle this year. And the two defenses, Minnesota's last year and Seattle's this year, are lights out. I mean, you get that, with these quarterbacks that have even come up with second acts. I mean, I think the situations are always underrated where these quarterbacks are. Drake May did not look the part last year in his 10 starts. It was also a bad team and a coaching staff that was in disarray. This year, you give him stability coaching staff. You give him an unbelievable offensive coordinator in Josh McDaniel. You give him a true number one in Diggs. You give him a home run threat, who right now is one of the best home run threats in the game as a rookie in Travion Henderson, and a number one rush defense and an overall excellent defense per DVOA. Yeah. God, man. Other than Mahomes in recent years, is there really a quarterback? Well, Jaden last year would be an example of a guy elevating a real average to less than average team to a lot of wins. It's hard to do it just by yourself. Josh Allen is certainly capable of it. Joe Burrow last year, for them to go 9-8 and to be in the playoff hunt into the final game of the season, that's all Joe Burrow. But yeah, he had Higgins and Chase. This NFL season, we talked about it a little bit yesterday, man. It is upside down right now, compared to what we thought at the beginning of the year. You take the AFC, right? Well, it's Kansas City, Buffalo, and Baltimore. You start there. All three of those teams, if the playoffs were to start today, would be out. And instead, Denver, New England, Indy would all be in. Actually, Buffalo would be in. My fault. Buffalo would be in as a wild card. Kansas City and Baltimore would be out. Cincinnati, a lot of belief before the season started. In the NFC, obviously Philly and Detroit, people had Washington in the mix, Tampa, San Francisco, LA, Seattle, Chicago, part of the mix. I think in the NFC, it's really hard. We didn't do a power rankings last week, Max. I don't think we did.
It can be super easy this week when we do it.
You think so?
I think so, yeah. Top two is pretty cemented. At least for
Why,
me.
you think Philly's number one?
I think the Rams are 1, Philly's 2, but that might just be me being a hater. I could definitely see the Philadelphia being 1.
I just look at Philadelphia and I'm like, the same concerns we had when they lost 2 in a row to Denver and the Giants.
Yeah.
Are the concerns now after 2 wins over the Packers and the Lions.
Sure.
They just don't seem right offensively. They just don't seem right offensively. Let me just tell you this.
That's what the regular season's for them now.
What'd you say?
That's what the regular season's for now. For the last couple games, it's time.
I know.
Time to get the offense dialed in.
If they end up winning the Super Bowl, it's not going to shock me.
Yeah.
But it's like I was about to say, they've won 2 games, scoring 10 and 16 points. They've scored 26 points in 2 games and won both of them against the Packers and the Lions. And I was about to say they're going to have to score more points to beat Dallas on Sunday. Well, maybe not, because they held the Lions to 9. Now, the Lions, could have kicked some field goals and ended up with more points. But what they did to Detroit and what they did to Green Bay defensively, that's a defense that is really starting to come together. That is this week's NFL slate includes at 1:00 Indy at KC. That is a 1:00 game, Indianapolis at Kansas City. Why? Because Fox is the doubleheader week, and they've got Philly at Dallas. And now with Dallas coming off that win and looking good on defense, last night Pickens. What was the report? Do we know why Pickens and CeeDee Lamb didn't start the game?
Yeah, they were having a grand old time in Las Vegas. Yes, they were
the problems with
the
Vegas.
City.
Yeah, been there.
Who among us?
Yeah, Dallas and Philly. If Dallas wins that game, there's going to be a lot of buzz around the Cowboys if they win that game. There's no doubt about it. Because Quinnen Williams was dominant last night. And then you've got the Sunday night game, Tampa and the Rams. Huge game for the Bucs. Carolina's right on their heels. And then on Monday night, Carolina at San Francisco. Not a bad game. The Thursday night game this week. Is Stroud back? Do we know or not?
We don't know yet. He's still got a clear concussion protocol, so that'll be over the next couple of days.
It looks like they don't expect Stroud to play because Buffalo is a 6-point favorite on the road. I don't think the line would be that high in Houston if Stroud were playing. Pittsburgh at Chicago, 6-4 at 7-3. Aaron Rodgers does not need surgery. Doesn't mean he's going to play Sunday.
He's lobbying to, but I mean, we'll see what the trainers kind of decide there. But he does want to play with that broken wrist.
Good football games coming up this week. The college football playoff picture and the seeding will be out tonight. I'm very interested to see what happens with Alabama in these rankings after they lost to Oklahoma. We didn't talk at all yesterday about some of the college football from Saturday. I thought that Oklahoma-Alabama game was a really, really good football game. Oklahoma's excellent on defense. I thought that I'm telling you right now, Notre Dame is, Paulie's not wrong about Love. Jeremiah Love is the next elite NFL back. He is that good. Notre Dame has I don't see them losing. I think they're going to be a lock for the playoff. They play, Syracuse and Stanford to finish up, and then they're going to be in the field. But it'll be interesting to see how far Bama drops tonight. A&M, the comeback of the year, down 30-3 at home against South Carolina. They won 31-30. Marcel Reed was 2 different players in the same game. Horrendous in the first half and brilliant in the second half. Man, the college football playoff thing, there are going to be a lot of debates as to the last few at-larges. You know who's back in the mix a little bit? Navy, after beating
Big
South
win
Florida.
over USF last week.
And Madison very much in the mix. Navy and Madison are in the mix for the non-power 4, spot
North Texas in there too. They've been really good.
North Texas is in there too. South Florida's now done, and I thought
Cooked.
they were the most capable in terms of a team that could give somebody problems in a playoff game. All right, is Chris back or not?
He is. He is regaling everybody with stories on Beamish and Finley, and he will have even more right here in just a few minutes on the Team 980.
Chris next. Back tomorrow.